can say the cost, right? Cost of borrowing. So it is the responsibility of the entrepreneur, of course, with the assistance of a financial professional, to evaluate which source he has to take so that he would be able to make the profit. Definitely, he cannot make the profit in year one or year two, but he will have to wait for some certain time period. So from when he can start making the profit is what depends upon basically the combination of the capital structure. And then the next function is allocate and control all these funds. That's what I was just talking about. Borrowing is one aspect or one side of the business enterprise. Allocation of the funds is again very, very important, because just now I was talking about when I said how to estimate the capital required. Now, say for example, the company has borrowed from long term sources for the purpose of long term, and if it is not able to really invest wisely into the long term assets, then probably the entire estimation would go topsy turvy, right? So what will happen here, because long term borrowing requires long term payment over a period of time in the form of interest and principal. I'm giving a very broader understanding. Similarly, long term assets, it requires one time investment and it will give the returns over a period of time. So what one should do is, it should be able to invest the long term sources, borrowing in a very wise manner into long term assets, so that he can match between the returns generated from the assets in the form of long term assets and the requirements of the long term sources of capital. So these two can be matched together, number one. Number two, similarly, short term sources are there, short term borrowings are there. So these short term borrowings should be invested into short term sources of funds. Now, so best example of short term source is that we call it in terms of the working capital. So what is working capital? Working capital is basically the amount which is required in order to perform the day-to-day operations. So when we are talking about the working capital requirements, if suppose the company is not able to really generate any amount on its own in order to take care of the working capital requirements, it can also borrow. So this borrowing should be definitely for short term. So what will happen? Short term borrowing is being invested into the working capital on day-to-day basis, and this working capital should generate the returns which can take care of the requirements of the short-term borrowings. So that is what is basically very important. Most of us, of course, we will never really look into how the allocation is being done. Most of the entrepreneurs per se, they also don't know exactly as to, I'm sorry to give this categorical statement again, but most of them also, they don't know exactly as to how to allocate the funds. So it is the finance professional who will do all these cost benefit analysis, and based upon that, the allocation of the funds should be done. Clear? And then distribute the profit or surplus. Again, this is the most important function again. After allocation of the funds, after the company starts generating the profits or surplus, how it should be distributed. So basically, what happens is, entrepreneur or management per se will always feel that this should be invested, whatever profit the company has generated, it should be invested back into the business, so that the business will start growing at much faster pace. Whereas the investors, they will feel that this particular profit should be distributed to them. If it is in the form of a share capital, they feel that the dividend should be given to them from the profits. So there is definitely always a conflict of interest between the investors and the management. And that's what in finance term, basically we call it as agency problem or agency cost. Okay, I think most of my friends who are from finance background, they should be able to tell us. But just because the discussion has come, I'm just giving one more concept here. So what happens basically when we talk about the agency problem? Agency problem will arise when there is a difference of opinion among the management and the investors. So distribution of the profit is also very, very important here. Now, what happens is, once the company starts generating profit, most of the times the company will feel that this profit can be invested again and again back into the business so that it can flourish at a faster pace. But there is again one more clause, there is again one more requirement. There should be certain allocations have to be done from the profit. Profit should be kept aside even for the purpose of meeting out the requirements, untoward incidents. If suppose anything happens, there should be some amount which has to be kept aside in the form of a reserve. So it is the finance professional who will again guide or suggest the entrepreneur as to how much profit can be retained into the business, how much profit should be allocated to the investors in the form of returns, how much profit should be kept aside in order to meet the contingencies. So as an entrepreneur, it is equally important for every one of us to understand how this distribution of the profit has to be done. Finally, the last function, I should say, it's not exactly last function, but all these functions are basically revolving. These are all reoccurring functions. It is like a vicious circle, right? We cannot say which one is first and which one is last, kind of a thing. So monitoring the financial activities. So what happens is, whatever estimations the finance manager has done, whatever expectations the management was having, whether this particular expectations have been fulfilled or not, is what is identified in the form of the monitoring the financial activities. So whatever decisions we have taken, right from estimation of the capital, determination of the capital structure, evaluation of the sources, allocation of the funds, and distribution of the profit, how it has been done is what is done in the form of the monitoring. So finally, what I want to enhance all of us with the knowledge is that what exactly we mean by financial management. So financial management, the basic definition or the very crisp definition of financial management says that it is basically related with identification of the funds, pooling of the funds, and deployment of the funds in a very proper way. So that is what is the essence of financial management. Any questions before I go ahead with the rest of the discussion? Any questions?
Ma'am, in this what, allocate and control funds,
Yeah.
what is being actually done?
Allocation of the funds.
Yeah.
See, that's what I said. See, what happens is generally, if you are a finance person, you might be knowing about the balance sheet, right? So otherwise also every one of us are required to know about balance sheet. So when you see the balance sheet, on one side you will see liabilities on the left side, and on the right side you will see the assets. Is it not? So liabilities again bifurcated into long-term liabilities and short-term liabilities. Assets again bifurcated into long-term assets and short-term assets. Now, what do we mean by long-term liability? Long-term liability, the basic definition says that it is the borrowing by the business enterprise for a longer period of time, right? The moment we are saying it is a borrowing, it requires the business enterprise to pay the interest and principal at a regular interval on year basis. Clear, madam? Right? Point number one. Point number two, on the right side, we have the assets. Now, what do we mean by assets? Assets are the ones which is owned by the company. Liabilities are the ones which is owed by the company. So we have to understand how these funds which has been borrowed by the business enterprise has been allocated in the assets which is owned by the company. So these assets are again bifurcated into fixed assets or long-term assets and short-term assets. So what do we mean by long-term assets? Long-term assets require the investment at once and they will give the returns over a period of time. So these returns should be used by the business enterprise in order to take care of the requirements of the long-term borrowings. So we call it as the fixed financial obligations. Clear? So allocation of the funds is what very important, madam. Very good question you have asked. I know as a new novice person into finance, how to identify the allocation of funds is itself is a big challenge, right? So the simple explanation I am giving here, identify how much is your long-term borrowing, how much is the requirement on year basis. Say for example, all the long-term borrowings require the company to make the payment of interest maybe at the rate of 12% precisely, just for the sake of example. So this should be invested into the fixed asset in such a way that these fixed asset at least should be able to generate returns to the extent of 12%, right? So that you can break even. Whatever above that you are generating, that will add to your profit. So allocation and control of funds is very important. That's why I said you have one more version is that you have short-term borrowings and you have short-term assets. So these short-term assets will require investment over a period of time at a recurring in nature. We call it as recurring in nature. So what happens in your short-term assets? Say for example, if it is into manufacturing, if suppose we are having a manufacturing company, but the purchase of the raw material has to be made very often. It's not that for entire 1 year the raw material can be purchased, is it not? So purchase of raw material has to be done over a period of time, in a very regular intervals it has to be done. So in order to purchase this particular raw material, what we have to do, what we have to look at, we have to look at that if at all the company is having a short-term borrowing, use this short-term borrowing in order to purchase the raw material, put the raw material into use, right? Convert it into the fixed asset, make the sales of this particular fixed asset, and then try to repay the requirements of your short-term obligations. Right? So finance is a very beautiful subject, in fact. Okay, the more you understand, the more you will enjoy it.
But
Right?
irony is India doesn't it takes care of it.
Yes, madam.
Financial education is not being taken care.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is not happening. But that is how we have to really understand the interlink between each and every component. See, financial accounting and financial management cannot be discussed in isolation.
Right.
Both have to go hand in hand.
True.
Right? So that's the reason financial accounting base should be very strong for the students, especially.
Right.
So that they'll be, now whatever I'm explaining about fixed assets and short-term assets and fixed liabilities and short-term liabilities, all are related to our financial accounting.
Right.
So if we know how to read the balance sheet, we will know how to really relate it with the estimation or allocation of the funds.
True,
Clear? I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Right.
you.
Any other question?
Ma'am, nowadays, like your first step estimate required capital.
Yeah.
Many startup, I believe, they are not looking for the funding for those. I mean, for example, fixed asset like that, because that requirement is limited. You have a model in front of you that is quite easy to sanction with someone that will pay later on. Right now, the promotional expenses to make it aware in the public. Like I give you example of Rapido. One of my friends have started a Rapido. Is a bike one.
Yes, I know.
Who you can book the bike. Now,
Yes.
the app is quite simple to create. That require license from the Google Play Store and all. That
Yeah.
have very small nominal payment you have to give and timely payment you have to give. That's okay. But you have to reach
Yeah.
to the various biker who looking for the employment. That required a lot of huge expenditure toward working capital.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, for the startup, I believe, ma'am, working capital expenses is quite bigger
More,
than
more,
the what
yes.
we require in
Sir,
fixed assets.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Again, that depends upon the
Kind of
business model.
startup.
That depends
Yeah.
upon business model.
True, ma'am.
Yeah.
But
See,
ma'am,
when I,
somewhere this, I mean, if suppose it's a fixed asset also,
yes,
you have to reach to the, you have a customer base, but you're not aware about it.
exactly.
You have planned something that in next 2 years we have this model in front of us. You
Yes,
still required before that you're planning towards the advertisement and promotion so that people start aware that yes, this or that is coming.
yes,
So, I mean, it's good. I believe that advertisement expenses is one of the, promotion expenses is one of the biggest element from the very first day when you're thinking about startup.
yes, sir.
Without awareness, without awareing your new customer base, you can't have,
You can't do.
you
You
have
can't
to
do. Yes,
somewhere for the next seed funding. I
yes,
believe next funding, you require that these kind of base we already have. Now we develop more of the base because people are still, attracting toward our product.
yes. Sir,
So,
what is happening nowadays is, in fact, when I gave assignment to my students, I said, I made into groups and I said, you have to come out with business plans. So I have almost 40 plus business plans with me, but almost all the students are going into app-based services. So they are not ready for brick and mortar building and they're not planning anything as such. So most of them are saying that, madam, we want to start with app-based service. So as rightly said by you, if it is app-based service, yes, definitely the working capital required will be more as against the long-term capital. Okay, but again, the investment in the app is again one time. Okay, so that estimation of the investment definitely we have to have. But yeah, I'm explaining in a little conventional manner, right? Maybe I'm keeping in mind the manufacturing companies, and based upon that I'm explaining this one. So machinery when I say, or the buildings when I say, or furniture when I say, all those are basically related with the manufacturing or per se the trading companies, right? But nowadays, yeah, as rightly said by you, many are going with the app based service, and I think that's a shortcut, I should say, right? Just you have an app and you be just a provider of the service, and you are an aggregator for that matter, right? You are not there directly involved into it. You are just an aggregator. So you are giving a platform and you are earning money, and this earning money is definitely this it is happening in a very short span of time. Earlier, people used to wait for 3-4 years to really break even. Right now, even break even is happening within no time. Am I right, sir? Amit Kumar, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Indeed, that's why I'm just thinking that this model is already same in everywhere. It's just that the prioritization, or you can say, or the
Yes.
allocation of funds, you can say,
Hmm.
or the profit scenario, how we're going to share the profit in
Hmm.
any app model. Because right now the virtual presence is from last
Yeah, yeah.
5 to 10 years quite increased. People
Yes.
are quite used to that thing. Even nowadays, I just think about we people become so lazy at our home.
Yes.
Everything is on our mobile, ma'am. Everything
Exactly.
you just think about it, it is delivered at your home. So
Exactly.
somewhere these apps play a major role, and these models have started working very well. And upcoming time they will ruling it.
Yeah.
So somewhere that brick and mortar which you're explaining,
Yeah.
it lack because people it require a huge investment.
Exactly.
And for these kind of even the brick mortar is also looking for that click and break model actually.
Yes. Yes.
Later on, everyone is converting in that way because they understood that the now the customer wants little bit more relaxation. It's a more required leisure time. So
Exactly.
these apps, these things is also required along with break and click. So it become a double cost for them.
Yes. Yes.
It's
See,
just that, ma'am.
basically,
Nothing else.
that's the
Yeah.
reason even government is encouraging these MSMEs. Okay, see what happens is when you talk about app-based service, yeah, they are providing. I will not say they are directly providing employment. They are helping out people in getting their own earnings. But what, if I am not wrong, what government is looking, because I was just going through the budget session also, what government is looking is if we encourage MSMEs and if they are able to establish on their own, maybe small manufacturing units, and they will provide a lot of employment, and that will definitely add to GDP. So now, of course, I mean, even this one, whatever you are saying, app-based service is also there. I'm not saying no, but yes, the future is going to be mostly app-based service. But when we look at again, if we really want to go back and provide a lot of employments to many people, I think I will go with the conventional or traditional. This that's my opinion. Of course, I am not negating your
Ma'am,
opinion.
even I go with it because the real employment generation is
Exactly.
only happen with MSME, not with
Yes.
the apps. It's
Yes.
only apps is more toward literal. If you're literally sound with the apps and all these things, then you can do. But what about those who are not get the chance to learn about these all things? They
Exactly.
are still lacking behind. For
Exactly.
those unemployed or poverty people, backward people, they required help from the MSME sector
Yes.
only.
Yes.
I
Very
really
good, sir.
with you, ma'am. Not an issue. Thank you, ma'am.
Right, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, to move, this is these are basically the principles of financial management. I'm sorry, I'm giving a lot of theory, but I think that should add value to our discussion here. So I'll just quickly glance through what exactly is the principle of financial management. Basically, we have to understand, I'll always start with the time value of money, because as an entrepreneur it is very much important to understand how we basically look at, because today if I am investing maybe 1 crore rupees, what is going to be the value of this 1 crore rupees 5 years down the line? So even if, say, for example, this 1 crore rupee is going to generate maybe returns of 1.5 crores or 2 crores or whatever it is, if I look at the basic investment and the earning, I'll say I made profit. But whether that particular 1.5 crore rupees at the end of 2 years or 3 years, is it going to be the equivalent of your what you have invested today's date? So time value of money plays a very, very important role. It talks about the value of money. Either you can estimate it in the form of a future value, or you can estimate it in the form of a present value. So understand what is going to be the present value of your future money. So this is very, very important. So every entrepreneur for that matter should have at least a little bit of knowledge about how to give importance to time value of money, because it is not that because future is always uncertain. Now, say for example, what has happened during COVID time, everything came to a standstill. So everyone were left with a lot of question marks, right? So somebody, say for example, somebody has started their business during COVID time. This 1 year was definitely a very bad period for them. They, even though they started their business, they would not have made even a single paisa of earning. So what is the use? So sometimes, yes, those contingencies happen, but we have to understand how to basically understand how to give the importance to the time value of money. Point number one. How to leverage upon, right? Again, this is very, very important concept in our financial management. So just now I was talking about all the fixed borrowings. So how to leverage upon these fixed borrowings? So try to maximize the returns or earnings out of your fixed investment, because anyway the day to day will happen, it will give you returns immediately, but your fixed investment should give you more returns, so that you would be able to leverage upon those fixed investments. So leverage is also very, very important concept when we talk about understanding the importance of financial management. Then liquidity versus profitability. So these two always again are always debatable. So whether the company should look at the liquidity position, or whether the company should look at the profitability position. Now, what do I mean by liquidity? Liquidity basically talks about the ability of the business enterprise to take care of its financial obligations, the short-term financial obligations, or maybe requirements of the working capital. So we call it as liquidity. Then profitability. So always we talk about, we always have a debate on this, whether companies should look at having a profit or generate more and more profit, and or whether the company should look at having more of a liquidity. Because when I talking in terms of the profit can be measured in terms of, not only in terms of money per se, but even you will have profit or revenue for that matter. If I am looking at revenue in a broader term, revenue includes both cash and non-cash. So total amount, say for example, the company has made sales of 100 rupees, out of that 50 rupees is cash and 50 rupees is on credit basis. So both 50 rupees of cash and 50 rupees of credit is combined into revenue, and based upon that we are calculating the profit. So it says that whether we should measure the liquidity of the business enterprise, or you should measure the profitability of the business enterprise, because profit per se not only measured in terms of cash, but it also includes all those which are not really earned in the financial year. We call it as accrual. Clear? So there is a debate again. There is always a clarity that the entrepreneur should get, whether he should look at the liquidity or whether he should look at the profitability. Then he should be able to look at the matching principle. As I said, we talk about in the basics of accounting. So matching principle is basically how best he can go about matching his expenses and revenue generated in that particular year. So how much revenue he is generating and how much expenses or per se expenditure he is incurring in that particular year, these two he should be always match in between. And then the portfolio effect. The investments precisely, say for example, when I call it in terms of portfolio effect, I'm not talking about the stock exchange or investment into financial portfolios, but I can also relate it with the various subsidiaries. Suppose, say for example, the business enterprise is having 2-3 branches or 2-3 subsidiaries. So how he is going to really understand the interrelationship between all these 3 branches? Say for example, one branch is making a profit, another branch is not making a profit, another branch is making maybe it is at break even. So how he goes about trading off between the profit and losses of all these 3 branches per se is what we call it as the portfolio effect. It can be related to the financial investments also. And then valuation of the assets is again very, very important, or valuation of the overall enterprise per se is very important. So when I talk about the valuation, we have to understand how the assets are being valued first, right? There are various techniques. If I go into the details, probably I'll be taking only financial management class, so I don't want to go into that. So valuation of the firm and valuation of the assets is also equally important. And then finally, the entrepreneur should be able to understand how to balance between risk and return. So all these are interlinked again. If he is able to understand the time value of money, he'll be able to balance between risk and return. If he is able to leverage upon his long-term borrowing, he'll be able to balance between risk and return. If he is able to understand the interlink or interdependency or the importance of liquidity and profitability, he would be able to definitely strike a risk trade-off between risk and return. If he is able to understand how to match the expenditures and revenues, he would be able to trade off between risk and return. And then, of course, as I said, the portfolio effect, if he is able to understand the importance of portfolio, understand the importance of the investment into various components instead of investing into one per se, he will be able to understand how to trade off between risk and return. And of course, the valuation also provides a perfect knowledge about how to trade off between risk and return. Okay. So now let us come back to the MSME definition. old definition, I have picked up intentionally this one because earlier MSME's requirement was very less. Now the MSME requirements is more when we talk about the initial investment and also the turnover. So the classification is given in the form of micro, small and medium enterprises, especially in terms of manufacturing and services. It says that micro is basically the enterprises which are making investment more than 1 crore and turnover is somewhere around 5 crores. Small is 10 crores of uh, investment and turnover is 50 crores. Okay. And then medium is investment of 20 crores and turnover of 100 crores. This is basically the snippet which I have taken from the Government of India side. And these are all the various financing options. I'm so sorry, this picture has not come clearly. I have not taken the conventional financing options, but I have intentionally taken the newer ones, which we have to really understand if at all there is any startup, how they can go about taking help of all these financing options. This one is basically crowdfunding. This is private equity. This is venture capital. This is angel investment. This is corporate bonds. This is fintech. This is factoring services. And this is trade receivable exchanges. And this is basically the SME exchanges. So I'm going to talk about what is this SME exchange also. This picture has not come clearly. So let us quickly look at what exactly we mean by crowdfunding. Now here, the entrepreneur can look at, maybe he can take the assistance of crowdfunding, but this will not be applicable to all the types of businesses. We have to understand that. So basically, what is crowdfunding? Crowdfunding is basically an approach to raise the funds for a particular project by asking a large number of people each for a small amount of money, usually through an online platform. And this is a time limited campaign. So what does it mean? I don't know how many of we are really active on the Facebook, but generally it happens. I think there is something known as Keto, which basically helps the cancer patients, right? So sometimes what they will do, they'll be posting it on Facebook saying that so and so patient requires so much of money in order to get the treatment, right? Maybe if somebody is having a blood cancer or some other this serious ailments, this Keto is an organization basically which is basically into social. They're all social entrepreneurs, we call them as. And what they do is they will raise the funds from the people at large and they will help the patient in getting the treatment done. So that is what is basically known as crowdfunding. So I'm giving one example here, but we cannot really generalize this crowdfunding to all the types of business enterprises. So that differs from the business model, that differs from the objective of the business enterprise. So I just gave one example of this crowdfunding in terms of the medical treatment, because that is what we very often come across on the online platform. Then second most important is the private equity structure. Now, what do we mean by private equity? It is basically investment by the investors, private investors, right? And how do they invest? We have outside investors, we call it as limited partners. We have general partners, right? Limited liabilities companies. And then we have individual fund managers as part of the LLC. So what do? They will come together. It can be individually or they can all come together and they can make an investment into these portfolios. Investment A, investment B, investment C, investment D. You can also understand it as 4 different companies. So what they are doing, they're all coming together. Instead of one particular individual funding against the startup, there are 3 individual service providers, financial service providers, who are coming together, and they are also they are not investing into one startup per se, but they are investing into 4 different startups. So what is happening here? They are also trying to understand how to basically trade off between risk and return. Now, as I have explained here, I am talking this from the financial service providers point of view. So when they are investing like this, what will happen? Even if company A is not able to really generate the returns, if company B is generating, company C is generating, and company D is moderate, still their investment is safe. So what happens here? They are able to strike a chord or strike a balance between risk and return. So one of the most important sources of financing for the MSMEs is, again, we have the private equity funding, and then we have venture funding also. As our friend was talking about this one. So there are venture capital firms. There are individuals also who have come up like venture capitalists, and they are also providing funding against the startups. So what do? They provide funding at every stage sometimes. So maybe in the initial stage in the form of a seed capital, then probably stage 2 they can provide in the form of a startup capital. Why I'm using this particular slide, especially because it is the entrepreneur, depending upon his choice, he can go about approaching the venture capital funding agencies in terms of whether he needs it in the form of a seed capital or whether he wants it in the form of a startup capital. At what stage he wants the venture capital funding assistance, he can definitely plan accordingly. That's what we said. The entrepreneur will have to plan for his capital requirement. So he can plan as to at what stage he can take the assistance from the venture funding. So venture funding is done in the form of a equity funding. As rightly said by one of our participants, they don't expect any returns in the beginning, but definitely this venture capital funding, venture capital providers, they don't stay for a longer time with the business enterprise also. There is a definite exit point for all these venture funding companies. So how do they exit? If time permits, we will see. Otherwise also, I think most of you might be knowing about it. So this can be taken in the form of a seed capital. This can be taken in the form of a startup capital, or early stage or second stage financing, or expansion stage, or probably venture capital funding can be taken as a bridge financing just before going for the IPO. Any questions?
Yes, ma'am. I have a question.
Yeah.
What do we understand by the seed accelerator?
Pardon?
Seed capital is perfectly fine. And what is the seed accelerator?
I'm so sorry. It's not clear. Can you tell me?
Seed accelerator, ma'am.
Seed accelerator. Okay. Can I know what is your idea about seed funding?
Seed funding, I think, which is the initial capital which is being invested by the venture funds.
Okay. So, I mean, you know the difference between seed funding and startup funding?
Ma'am, please explain. I
Okay,
want to
fine,
clear
fine.
my doubt.
Don't think that I'm asking questions, but I
No,
just
no.
want to know.
I
Yeah.
want to clear my doubt.
Yeah, as rightly said by you, seed funding is basically even before the business enterprise start its business per se, launches its business, right? Now, say for example, most of the times we require seed funding when we make the prototype, right? When we are just doing the market research, when we are just in the initiation stage, we have not yet launched it in a full-fledged manner. Probably we may require seed funding. That's why it is called as seed funding, right? And then startup, once you launch, yes, you can take at the time of launch, as rightly said by our one of the participant, if it is app based, I think you need not really worry much about the seed funding and startup funding kind of a thing, right? But if it is definitely a manufacturing unit, you will have to bifurcate everything like this. So initially, even before you start your venture, I think you will have to pay for your registrations, you will have to pay for your legal requirements, you will have to pay for a lot of things, right? A lot of paperwork and all those things require huge amount. So all those things can be taken, even the market research can be taken up in the form of your seed capital. Once you do all these things, then you are establishing your firm finally, then that's where you go for your startup capital, right? And then once you put up your establishment, put up your business enterprise, maybe if you feel that still you require a funding at this second stage, third stage, you can go for this stage number 3, right? And then maybe after 5 years, 6 years, you are planning to go for an expansion of your own business enterprise, go for expansion stage, borrow again in the form of venture funding for the expansion. And maybe after that, after expanding also, if you want to really go for IPO, then you require again a lot of amount there, right? So that is what is called as basically bridge financing or bridge funding. So you can go for all these kinds of financing. But again, I'm not saying that only one business enterprise should go in this particular sequential manner. It depends upon the requirement of the business enterprise, whether to go for seed capital, whether to go for startup capital. Any stage, there are venture capital funding providers who are ready to fund. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right. Any questions? Okay. Then we have one more option. It is basically known as receivables purchase agreement between the seller and financial provider. I just explained about all the types here in a very simple manner. So trade receivables exchange. So we have discussed about crowdfunding. we have discussed about the private equity, we have discussed about the venture capital, and now we are discussing about the trade receivables exchange. Now, what do we mean by trade receivables exchange? Here we have three parties. One is the seller, one is the buyer, and one is the finance provider. So what happens here is, it is basically an agreement between the seller and the finance provider, wherein the seller, see, if you really look at this step number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll be able to understand how the entire process happens. Okay, now what do we mean by receivable? Receivable, the company will, rather the receivables are arise when there is a credit sale made by the company, right? So that's what we call as receivables purchase management or receivables agreement. Okay, so whenever there is any credit sales by the company, the customer will not pay the money on time. The payment is not done on time, but the payment is done at a later period of time based upon the time period given by the seller to the customer, right? So we call it as a credit sales. So that's where the receivables are generated. Now, what happens here, if we look at this particular diagram, this is the seller. We take it as an MSME or an entrepreneur. So what happens here is, seller enters into a commercial arrangement with the buyer. So what happens here? They both enter into an agreement here, and then seller issues the invoice with the payment details. So once the agreement is done, wherein in this particular agreement, the amount of the volume of the sales, the amount of the sales, and the time period given to the buyer in order to make the repayment is mentioned. And then the seller issues an invoice with the payment details here to the buyer. Then step number 3, what happens here? Seller sends invoice to the finance provider under the receivables purchase agreement. Now here what is happening? This agreement is already entered into between seller and buyer, saying that this is the invoice that has been generated against the purchase, and then these are the payment details. The same copy of the invoice is presented to the finance service provider. Now, what this finance service provider will do? Finance service provider will pay the amount at a discounted price, right? That means what? Now, say for example, total value of the receivable, suppose it is somewhere around 1 lakh. Now, depending upon the agreement between the seller and the finance provider will what we can say, the finance provider will realize the receivables or invoice to the extent of maybe 90,000. So what he will do, 90,000, 10, he will take the discount. He will realize the receivables amount at a discounted price. So here receivables are discounted to the seller. So what is happening here? The seller has raised the invoice against the buyer, submitted the invoice to the buyer. Same invoice is submitting to the finance provider. Finance provider, within no time, he is paying it back to the seller, of course, at a discounted price. Later on, it is the finance provider who will have to go back and get the money from the buyer. Okay, so on the due date of the invoice, buyer pays into a finance provider account the total value of the invoice. Now, what is happening here? The value of the invoice, as I said, is 1 lakh rupees, but finance provider is paying only 90,000 to the seller, whereas the finance provider is getting entire 1 lakh from the buyer. So all the three parties are at a benefit in this particular agreement. What kind of benefit we are able to see here? Here, though it is the time period given by the seller. Now, say for example, seller gives 3 months time to the buyer to make the repayment, but seller need not wait for the buyer to make the payment, but instead this invoice is being realized by the financial service provider, though at a discount price, though he is not getting entire 1 lakh, he is just getting 90,000 also. But if you look at the concept of the time value, I think that is justified over there, right? So what is happening here? He is getting 90,000 immediately, which he can again use in his day-to-day operations in the form of working capital. So on one side, seller is assured of the amount that he is going to receive from the finance service provider, and buyer is assured that whatever time has been given, he need not really pay for back to the seller, but he has to pay to the finance service provider. Finance service provider will definitely charge certain commission. Already he is getting, since he is doing it at a discounted price, when buyer makes the payment, he is making the full payment. So that's where in this kind of agreements, all the three parties are at a benefit. Yeah, any doubts? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, is it clear? So
Yes.
why we are understanding this? Because again, the same arrangements are there for the MSMEs also. Finally, we are talking about what kind of arrangements, financial arrangements are there for MSME so that they can manage their funds properly. So here I said, when the finance provider is paying, though at a discounted price, but still the MSME or per se, the business enterprise is getting its amount within no time, which can be used into its day-to-day operations. Otherwise, what will happen? Now imagine if this particular party is not there, finance service provider was not there, then it is the agreement between seller and buyer. Here, seller will have to wait for 3 months for the buyer to make the repayment, right? So by any chance, if the buyer becomes a defaulter, then there is a problem for the seller. So he will have to lose that particular money. So there are all uncertainties related with this particular agreement. That's the reason most of the entrepreneurs per se or the business enterprises prefer this kind of financial arrangement. Okay, point number 3. Then point number 4, we have angel investor. Who is an angel investor? Angel investor is a person prepared to invest their personal or family money. Okay, a person who can add value to the company. An accredited investor as defined by OSC, a member of an angel network. The majority of the angel investment in Canada, of course, is completed by individuals more than 85, to the extent of 85%. And of course, I have taken it from the foreign countries' point of view, not from Indian perspective, but Indian perspective also, there are a lot of angel investors. In fact, one of the company which has come for the recruitment to our campus, the angel investor is Mr. Ratan Tata, right? So I'm sorry to say I'm not able to recollect the company name per se, but angel investor is Mr. Ratan Tata. So when we told our students that angel investor is Mr. Ratan Tata, though it is a startup company, clear, then our students were assured, they themselves got an assurance that if the angel investor is Mr. Ratan Tata, probably that company will be having a lot of value, right? And nothing wrong in joining that kind of company. So that's where I'm just trying to interlink between these two. So why they are called as angel investors? Basically, because these investors, we most of us probably will not know as to who exactly is an investor in that particular investment, right? But since that company has come to the campus recruitment, they wanted to in fact, they wanted to encourage the students with the brand. That's the reason they said it is Mr. Ratan Tata who is the angel investor over there, right? And then one more important service we have is factoring service. Now we have to understand the difference between purchase of the receivables and factoring service. So if you look at the picture, both seems to be same. All the three parties, again, we have the seller, we have the buyer, we have the factor. More or less everything is same, right? Seller, he will raise the invoice, seller will send the goods to the buyer will basically purchase all the things, but buyer will not pay the amount on the spot as we discussed earlier, but it is the factor. Factor is again a financial service provider, right? Here buyer will have to pay to the factor as we have discussed in the earlier discussion. It is the factor who will have to chase the payment from the buyer, but only difference between earlier discussion and this particular discussion is that here the factor will pay 80% of the invoice value immediately, and remaining he will pay to the seller after the buyer makes the entire payment. So the difference between discounted receivables or purchase of receivables at a discounted price and the factoring is that factoring is mostly 100% factoring, whereas discounted receivables or purchases receivables is at a discounted price. So here again, what happens here? The factor will pay 80% to the seller. A remaining amount or remaining percentage he will pay once he receives from the buyer. Now you can ask me, if the buyer becomes a defaulter, then who has to be blamed, right? Always we'll have this particular. If the buyer becomes a defaulter, again it depends upon the agreement between the seller and the factor as to who will bear the risk. We call it as the non-recourse factoring and recourse factoring. Okay, so these are the two types of factoring basically. So it indicates, if it is a recourse factoring, it indicates that the entire risk is borne by the seller if at all the buyer becomes the defaulter. If it is non-recourse factoring, then it is the vice versa. So we have to understand that if depending upon the agreement, the entire realization of the receivables would be done. Okay. And then we have the corporate bonds. Of course, how much entrepreneur as a fresher, as a novice into the market, how much he can invest into it, how much he can borrow. Definitely that depends upon the requirements of the entrepreneur. But still, why I'm giving this, because one more source is there in the form of corporate bonds. If required, MSMEs can definitely borrow in the form of this one. So bonds are generally, all of us know, issued by the government organizations. So bond organization is there, bond purchased by an investor, and then the coupon payments, and then the company pays the principal amount. So this is basically the sequence what I wanted to explain. But I will really not concentrate more on this, because corporate bonds are not very, I should say, very much important, or very much liked, or very much preferred by the MSMEs per se. Then we have the fintech services, right? I have given this intentionally because earlier, when we looked at the fintech service, even before the fintech services, there was only a closed banking services which we used to experience. But after the onset of the fintech services, now if you really see the market, most companies are coming out in the form of the providing the fintech services. In fact, it is the service provided on behalf of the bank, right? So most of the startups again coming up, who are calling themselves as the fintech service providers, the startups, or we can say the MSMEs. Again, as rightly said by our one of the participant, this fintech services are mostly app based services. Now what is the difference between earlier banking service and this fintech services? Earlier it was the customer who used to directly walk into the bank, right, and do get all the services done by the bank directly to the customer. But after the fintech services, the market has opened for the fintech services. This is the third party which is doing the which is rendering the banking services on behalf of the bank. Now say for example, when we say this Google Pay or Paytm, right, or Rupa Pay or Paisa Pay, whatever is there, all these are the fintech service companies which are there on behalf of the bank. Is it not? So I'm just giving you one or two examples here. So likewise, what is happening? We are not directly going to the bank, nor we are directly dealing with the bank, but it is the third party through which we are making all the payments or receiving the payments. So this is what is basically now termed as open banking. So there are fintech collaborations, there are other banks, cross industry partnerships are also there, payment network is there. So what is happening? Everything is happening virtual, on a virtual platform. No one is able to see, say for example, we will never see to whom we are making the payment personally, but yes, we will be making the payment virtually. So lending and credit platforms are also there in this particular service. Payment services are there and account services are there. So what does it mean? This is all the banking services, in fact, by and large, are being provided in the form of the fintech services. Any questions? Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
Perfectly fine.
thank you. Anything that my participants would like to add from my discussion? Anything that participants would like to add? Okay, fine. Right. Then we have SME exchange. This was the last one which I was talking about. What do we mean by SME exchange? This is basically the stock exchange dedicated for the trading of the shares of small and medium scale enterprises who otherwise find it difficult to get listed in the main exchange. So all of us know what is the requirement for getting listed on the stock exchange, is it not? So what is the, now this SME exchange is basically established by BSE. It says the tagline, experience the new way. So all the SMEs can have their shares traded on the BSE, right, in the form of the SME exchange. So because otherwise what will happen? SMEs getting listed onto the stock exchange, it itself is difficult because the name itself indicates that it is a small and medium enterprise. So there are certain requirements, prerequisite in order to get listed on the stock exchange in terms of the what we can say minimum capital base and all those things. So basically SMEs may not fall under that particular category. That's the reason BSE has come out with this particular SME exchange. This is also one of the upcoming, I should say, the prominent source of our SMEs in order to raise their funds. Okay, so this is SME exchange. And of course, there are foreign investments also. In the introduction, I have told you, basically this B2C startups are coming up in the just because of the foreign investment. It can be, we can call it in terms of the foreign direct investment, or when we say foreign institutional investment, it is happening in terms of the financial investment. So there are a lot of foreign direct investments which are happening into the Indian market, and government is also emphasizing upon it, right? It says that that's where it talks about the Startup India and Stand-up India campaign. If you really go back and look into it, they're saying that it can be a foreign company, but it should make a beginning in the Indian market. So it should establish itself in the Indian market so that there will be an inflow of most of the foreign direct investment. And probably the small enterprises can also get an assistance from these foreign institutional investors, or maybe these maybe small investors can also take the assistance in the form of the foreign direct investment. There is a possibility. So this is again one of the important coming up. Now we will look into the government funding agencies, or precisely the options that are there for the MSMEs in terms of government schemes. So one is basically Mudra scheme. All of us know Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, which is Micro Units Development Refinance Agency. The full form of Mudra is Micro Units Development Refinance Agency. And the basic purpose of Mudra is to provide funding to the non-corporate small business sector. So what happens here again, as we have already discussed, here they have given three basic schemes. Under this particular scheme, the Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, there are three categories of interventions. One is known as Shishu. That means what? In this particular category, beginners, the startups will get a loan up to rupees 50,000. Then Kishore, the loan ranging from 50,000 to 5 lakhs, that is the second stage. And Tarun, loan above 5 lakhs and below rupees 10 lakhs is given at the final stage. That means now we can visualize as to whatever we discussed earlier, all or for relatively a bigger investment. Is it not? Whether you call it as venture capital, or maybe whether you call it as receivables management, or whether you call it as maybe the banks and other lending agencies and all, they are for a relatively a larger investment that is required by the entrepreneur. But this Mudra scheme especially encourages even a tiny business enterprise, I should say, right? So that's the reason they have come out with these three schemes. One is known as Shishu, Kishore and Tarun, wherein 50,000 will be given to the beginners and 50,000 to 5 lakhs to the second stage, and 10 lakhs to up to 10 lakhs to the final stage. So this is what is the government which has come out with these schemes. And then of course we have SIDBI, small industry. Yes, any questions? Madam Anju?
Please, do it previous slide. Yes, ma'am. It is about the non-corporate small business sector. So please explain the non-corporate small business sector. When we say non-corporate, what does it mean?
Okay. See, say for example, if you look at, you're from Hyderabad?
No, ma'am. I am from UP, Uttar Pradesh.
You are from UP, okay. See, one example I'll give you. Now, say for example, this fans, you know, right? Ceiling fans are there. So when you look at these ceiling fans, the bearing in the ceiling fan, you know, bearing in the ceiling fan, that small,
Yes,
we call it as a bearing, ball bearing, right?
Yes, yes.
So those ball bearings are manufactured not at a very higher level, or not at a very corporate level, or not at a very company level, but they are manufactured somewhere in the, well, maybe small place, or maybe in a small tiny room.
Right.
Clear? One example I am just giving so that we'll be able to relate. So
right.
Right? Likewise, say for example, this Coca-Cola and all this, they have their caps, right? Coca-Cola and all this, what we can say, the soft drink caps. They're not manufactured by the company per se, but they're manufactured by the third party. Is it not? But they're not established in the form of a company.
Yes.
Right? So that's why they are all called as small business sectors.
Okay.
Okay. See, in fact, going through last year's the COVID time, we have Dharavi in Mumbai, right?
Right.
Yeah. So when people started asking them why there was not that much of onslaught of COVID in Dharavi, because you know Dharavi is a slum area, is it not? So those people, they started saying that they don't basically go out to work. All of them have very small business units. Okay, they are into leather, they are into various types of small business units. So what they said, since we don't go out to work, the COVID has not come to our area. It has hit, but it has not hit as expected. Okay. So why I'm giving this example again, whatever they are doing in Dharavi, they're all small business sectors.
Right.
Okay. And I was told that, in fact, all the celebrities, they buy from them. Right. There is one person who makes shoes exclusively for the celebrities. But where is he? He's not a company per se, but he's a small business owner.
Right.
Right? I hope I made it clear.
Yes, you made it very clear. Thank you.
Thank you. So next, of course, all of us know, this is again, we have the Small Industry Development Bank of India, SIDBI, which is again catering to the requirements of the small scale enterprises. Of course, it's very prominent in funding for the small scale enterprises, right? So why I'm again talking about this, because when we look at all these things, I feel that this Mudra Yojana is what is basically encouraging the youngsters. All are there, no doubt about it. But again, SIDBI will not fund for the very small kind of a business enterprises. Again, they have their own norms for that, right? Then, of course, this is especially I have brought in because I know this is related to the entrepreneurship, but I thought that I should also discuss about these things, because at the end of the day, entrepreneur, if he is having a proper skill set, then he'll be able to start his business and he'll be able to identify which source of financing he can go about taking up. So one of the important initiatives by the government is Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. In this, of course, they are providing all these key short-term training is there, right? Recognition of the prior learning, special projects are there. Kaushal and Rozgar Mela is there. Placement assistance is there, continuous monitoring, and standardized branding and communication. So out of this, why I have picked up this one, I'll tell you. When a government is providing such kind of assistance to the people, once they come out after having this skill development, after getting the skill development, I think they are also becoming small scale entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs. So I thought that we should be able to interrelate between, in fact, our institute, we are also the partners of the government in providing the skill development training to the people. We have provided training to the youngsters, those who stay in the old city, Hyderabad, right? We have provided them training and they have become the entrepreneurs. So during this particular training also, we have told them what are all the various sources of funding that they can have. They can go, they can approach if they are not able to really be on their own. So this is how this particular Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana works. I have intentionally picked up this particular model. We have NSDC and SSC, right? And then Muskan, and then we have Skill Center. And then these are all the schemes for the MSME during this budget 21-22 we have. So one of the initial and primary points, I'm reading it out as it is from the budget. So one of the initial primary points stated that the government will introduce the Atmanirbhar Swasth Bharat Yojana with an outlay of rupees 64,180 crores to support and facilitate economic growth. The strengthening of Sankalp of Atmanirbhar Bharat was also proposed. So in addition to the Atmanirbhar Bharat schemes, the government proposed to launch 7 textile parks. Now you can imagine all these 7 textile parks, if they are established, all these come under the category of SMEs only, right? Over a period of 3 years. And this particular textile park is being established in order to boost the production and investment. Definitely, this initiative aims to generate employment, encourage domestic production, and make India a global champion in exports. Now, what will happen when the textile parks are coming out? Definitely, again, the raw material required for the textile parks is again from the small business enterprises only. So that is where the government is also looking at this. The government will allocate over 15,700 crores of rupees for the MSME sector, more than double that of the last year. Because it says that a data analytics and artificial intelligence framework will be launched to assist the MSME sector, along with the strengthening of the National Company Law Tribunal framework in order to quicken the resolutions of the cases through systems such as e-courts and alternative modes of debt resolution. So there are also proposed changes to help the MSMEs with regard to customs duty on khadi, leather, and gemstones. So what will happen if, say, for example, these custom duties are eased out? Then what will happen? The more and more there is a possibility of these MSMEs to go about exporting their products. So what will happen in this particular process? This will encourage the domestic processing, and the government will also raise customs duties on cotton and silk to benefit the farmers. So why I have picked up this one, because this is what is the main point which was mentioned in the budget, and it's because that's what I said. Though it is manufactured somewhere in the very slum area in Dharavi, this leather products are all in fact it is all exported. So no one knows where exactly it is being made. Okay, so that's why we have to understand the importance of MSMEs and how the government is also giving importance to them. And then in a big boost for the startups, the government incentivized the incorporation of one-person companies. So what has happened generally, see, that's what again very important for us, all of us to understand. Tomorrow, when you teach entrepreneurship, we all teach entrepreneurship, we should tell the students that it's not that you should establish with somebody or as a partnership only, but even one-person company is also being encouraged by the government. So that what happens, if the companies are floated, definitely it will pave way for a lot of employment. So such companies will be allowed to grow without any restrictions on the paid up capital or turnover, and can convert it into any other type of the company at any point of time. So what happens if it is run as a one-person company over a period of time? If this particular company wants to get converted into any type of a company, government is giving that leeway. Government is easing out all those things. So that is again one of the important points of the budget. And then to improve the credit discipline and protect the interest of the small borrowers, non-banking financial companies can recover loans that are over 100 crores only. So what does it mean? If any company or any MSME is borrowing lesser than 1 crore, definitely, then it says that non-banking financial companies are basically, they do not really, or they should not pester these small borrowers, but they can definitely recover the loans only from the MSMEs which are having more than 100 crores. So the budget also announced several alternative methods of debt resolution for the MSME. Of course, I have not come out with all those things, but one or two. So the budget announced that the definition of these small companies under Section 2, Subclause 85 of the Companies Act of 2013 will be amended. And the government proposes to do this by increasing the threshold of the paid up capital from 50 lakhs to 2 crores and turnover from 2 crores to 20 crores. Through this, many companies are covered under the definition of small companies, which ensures ease of compliances under the Companies Act. And at the same time, at the time of the pandemic, this will be a great help for the MSMEs. So what has happened? Why I have picked up this one? Because the very basic definition of the MSME, because the moment we call them as MSMEs, there are a lot of leeways, or there are a lot of relaxations that has been given by the government. So what government says is, it has redefined the MSME. It says that if at all the MSME is having a paid up capital up to 2 crores and turnover of rupees 20 crores, it can be treated as an MSME. So naturally, what will happen once it is treated as an MSME, whatever benefits we have discussed till now, all those will be applicable to them, right? And to provide the reliable measures and set the benchmark to boost and strengthen the MSME sector in India, TransUnion CIBIL, in partnership with the in partnership with the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, launched the MSME Credit Health Index on November 2, 2020. So what is this again? All of us know what is CIBIL, right? It basically talks about the credibility, right? Normally it is for the individual. Similarly, they have come out with for the MSMEs in the form of the TransUnion CIBIL. So which talks about the credit health of the MSME in terms of their repayment capacity and in terms of their borrowing capacity also. In October 2020, the Ministry of MSME, in a major initiative, onboarded the latest IT tools of artificial intelligence and machine learning for providing assistance and solutions to the micro, small and medium enterprises. The ministry has implemented AI and ML on its robust single window system Champions, which was launched by the Prime Minister on June 1, 2020. So what happens again? The MSMEs can also take the help of, or maybe in order to really fasten up their entire processing, they can take help of the AI or MI, machine learning, okay, ML. In September 2020, the Government of India constituted 5 ministerial task force to make India's MSME future ready and formulate a concrete strategy towards making the country a leading exporter. So bottom line is that why government is encouraging all these investments and all, because it wants to encourage more and more exports, and then definitely see that India, of course, overall as a country should develop. And then there is Udyog Aadhar Memorandum, is a one-page online registration system for the MSMEs based on self-certification. The information sought is on a self-certification basis, and no supporting documents are required at the time of online filing of UAM. MSME Data Bank enables the Ministry of MSME to streamline and monitor the schemes and pass on the benefits directly to the MSMEs. So it is helpful for MSME units that can update their enterprise information as and when required without visiting any government offices and updating information about their products or service. Until May 2019, more than 6.1 lakh MSMEs registered in the data bank. Now, what will happen? In fact, recently we have done one survey to this NIRDP, wherein we are required to go and talk to the MSMEs about the financial inclusion. So whatever we are talking about now is how best the MSMEs can be brought into the cusp of the financial inclusion. That's where the government has also come out with a lot of schemes. There are a lot of opportunities, in fact, from where the MSMEs can borrow the funds. So everything boils down to only one component, which we call it as the financial inclusion. So there was one survey which our institute has done on behalf of NIRDP. We were also asked to go and meet the MSMEs about identify their problems in terms of raising the funds. So in fact, myself and my colleague, we have taken Maharashtra, and there were others also from NIRDP who have taken from other sources. So we went to our own places, we got the information. Why I'm talking about this? Because I just went to one of the person in the government and I said, I want the data of all the MSMEs which are there in the entire Nanded district. So Nanded is basically my hometown. So I went to Nanded, and in Nanded district, I have taken the entire data of all the MSMEs. So it was at the click of the mouse. So the person concerned, he gave the entire data. The data included, number one, whether who exactly is the promoter, the name of the promoter, the year in which it was promoted, the service or the product what they are doing, how much is the initial capital that they have invested, and their contact numbers and email IDs, and the total address, detailed address of that particular MSME was given. So why I'm giving this particular example here, because this MSME data bank has basically helped out for us. In fact, while doing the research, it helped us to understand where we can go and whom we can really catch hold of, because they were also into medium, small, and medium enterprises. Micro enterprises were also there, small were also there, and medium enterprises were also there. But we were asked to take the information about the small enterprises, and that's where we were able to get the entire data from the data bank. So that is how the government has come out with the entire detailed data bank, right? And again, in order to facilitate the enterprise to enjoy benefits of various schemes, the MSME office launched a web-based application module in the form of mobile app called My MSME. So what happens? This allows the enterprises to make their applications and check for schemes on their mobile phones using the app. And MSME Sampark, launched in 2018. The MSME Sampark portal is a digital platform. Yeah, anything, madam? Anything? Why I'm giving these information? Because ultimately we are talking about MSME financing. So we need to understand what are all the various sources. Of course, all these are available. I'm not saying it is not available, but this is the right platform wherein we can talk about all these things. So there is a MSME Sampark portal, which is a digital platform wherein the job seekers and recruiters can register themselves for the mutual beneficial interactions. And finally, I'm just coming to the end now. The digital payment, as part of the Digital India initiative, the Ministry of MSME has taken numerous initiatives to digitally enable the entire MSME ecosystem. All MSME offices have been digitally empowered, and efforts have been taken to spread awareness on the benefits of digital mode of payment such as BHIM, UPI, and Bharat QR code. To encourage the local production, the government is working on policies to increase MSME exports and lower imports. In addition, rupees 200 crores scheme has been sanctioned to set up 12 technology centers, which are expected to be completed by 2021. Right? And then, yeah. Now let us look at any questions till now. Any questions?
I have a question on the slide, Muskan slide.
Yeah. Tell me, madam.
Just wanted to understand. This is maybe my perception. We have NSDC and SSC and Muskan Skill Center. Do you think they are really successful? Because in our area, I have seen that there are many Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, and they are not yet being successful, and then they are closed. It is like
Yes.
almost like disastrous, I would say, for the person who has started.
Hmm. Yeah, you're right, madam. See, of course, I never wanted to discuss about the whether it is successful or failure. Yes, but if you ask me personally, it was not that very successful, because see, I told that we are also the partners, training partners for government as far as the development is concerned. But not all the I should say, not at all times we were successful. Maybe 2 years continuously we had, but later on people stopped coming. So yeah, they have come out with these models, but it is the individuals who will have to make use of it. Probably the reach was not correct.
Yeah, reach was not the correct. The schemes
Exactly.
were correct, but the
Yeah.
reach was not
The
correct.
reach was not correct. The idea is good, but reach is
Yes,
not proper. As
yes,
our colleague was saying earlier,
yes,
marketing is what is very important, right?
yes.
So somewhere that's where the
So,
government has failed. Though it was started by government, though it was at a very lesser cost, but still people have not made use of it.
because there was no less awareness of it, no, reach was not
Exactly.
there.
Awareness was not created properly.
Yes,
Yes.
and please kindly explain about the Muskan scheme also. I'm like little unaware about it.
Yeah, see, these are all different these things. See, one is NSDC and SSC, right? Here, what happens is it basically talks about the norms and policies of monitoring, the funding, the qualification packs and national occupation standards, and complete assessment process. So, this is actually the working model of the entire Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. So Muskan is, as the name itself indicates, that if we are able to really provide them the required amount of training, probably they should go walk out with a smile on their face. That's the basic understanding, right? So here it is basically in coordination with this NSDC and SSC and SC. Then they will be providing a training to this SC staff. Course material would be generated. Then the marketing strategy, that's what I said. Marketing strategy will be taken up or maybe framed up, and then logistics and coordination and placement assistance. Finally, what will happen? The skill center. Now, as I was explaining, we also had the skill development center. So there was one person who came from the government in order to check the course material. In fact, he is the one who said this is how the course material should be provided. And he is the one who, in fact, looked at the entire area in which we are providing this particular skill development, the resources what we are using in order to provide the skill development. And then finally, he was looking at the skill center, right? He was monitoring the skill center. So all these three, in fact, go hand in hand. So skill center is basically in terms of the infrastructure, the staff and facility, the local promotion and enrollments, and training and placement. So these three are the working models of this Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana. I mean, I don't want to really put it as step number 1, 2, 3, but yes, it goes like this. Okay, all these three go hand in hand.
Right.
Okay.
And is there any limitations in Muskan and Skill Center? Because in NSDC there are number of 60 participants should be there for that.
Yes. See, there are, in fact, long back it has happened. I don't know, they revised these things here. Yes, there is a limitation. See, I think, I mean, a skill center per se, I don't know, but yes, it is 50 as far as Muskan is concerned. I think skill center also, I am not clear, I am not sure, but we had 25 participants in each batch.
Okay.
Okay, long back, of course.
Right.
Okay, I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Right. Now, I think we are in the last leg of discussion. If you have still any questions related to financial management of MSMEs, probably you can raise. Because see, I have not gone into the basic calculations part because that is not what is the objective. But broadly, what we have to understand is if at all any MSME has to be started or any startup has to be started, what kind of financial assistance that they can look up. Because ultimately, all said and done, all this assistance in terms of the looking at the cost benefit or doing the cost benefit analysis, there are a lot of financial professionals who will do it and who will help the MSMEs in it. In fact, when I ask my students to prepare their business plan, I will help them out in understanding how to look at the cost benefit of their own venture, or we will also do the feasibility analysis. And based upon that, we will say whether this particular venture is going to be successful or whether that particular venture will have to be made certain changes into it. Okay, so I mean, that's what I'm saying. I have more than 40 business plans with me, but I really don't know how many of them the students are going to start, because as an assignment they did, but I don't know how far they have put in their heart into it. So if at all there is somebody who really wants to become an entrepreneur, yes, we can definitely provide an assistance to them. Okay. Yeah. So any questions related to the discussions, whatever we had, because we are almost touched at the last rung of our discussion. Before I go ahead with this, if you have any questions, you can ask me.
Ma'am, hello, first of all. Ma'am, there, like, as ma'am was saying in the previous colleague was saying about the, various initiatives also given by the government, but people not able to, up to the mark because of sometimes turned up losses. I believe that, ma'am, initially every model has a, good profitable view,
Yes.
good expectation, but somewhere the sustainability part lacking.
Yes, sir.
Sustainability thing, which I believe that, like you were saying that you have 40 business plan in front of you and student has submitted to you. But somewhere when the time passes, then you able to know that someone adopted, someone has better way to take it front.
Forward,
So people start dropping the plan. I mean, I'm just saying that one of my friend has 8 different startup, ma'am, 8 different startups.
Okay.
So whenever he fail, he again, changes his line a bit, and again he's have a new invention. But somewhere sustainability towards one product is not good enough in a startup. You have to be quite, adaptable towards the flexibility as well as the dynamic changes happening around the world.
Yes, yes.
Because everyone is have a good competition, and you cannot survive with only one good plan.
Exactly.
You should. People, I heard many years, YouTube story that you should only focus on plan A. But I believe that plan B and plan C and plan D have to blend somewhere together in over the period of time, because if you don't, you'd never know that which particular product or which particular plan has their stagnation point, you can say, because some various startup ends within 2 years, within 1 year, within 5 years. Some people succeeded, but that long term duration required long term commitment from the funds, because that particular person, government, why didn't help MSME? You talk about a lot of funds was raised, provided by the budget speech, and government was taking initiative. But to reach that benchmark, your venture fund, your basic establishment is required. Then you can apply.
Exactly.
As a new, I believe I can't have this kind of fund initially very at the very beginning. I have to put my money in the pocket in the business.
Yes.
If it is sustainable, they find out something worthy, then they give it to you. And of course, a lot of paperwork, ma'am. You can't say that you get funds so easily. You have required a lot of things to explain.
I know.
Why not? You have to ITR things and all. Everyone do, but the terms, conditions are quite enormous that various startups end up like anything.
Exactly.
They feel like, let's go back to the job. Unless you have your own funds to invest, you can't rely on anyone else. Unless you have a very successful idea, backed by top heads or top notch, like Google tap various startups whenever funds required. But Google established his set of angel investor. People start relying on them.
No, that's what I said. I was giving Mr. Ratan Tata's example also. He is also an angel investor. See, yeah, you are right, sir. Amit Kumar sir, I am absolutely not negating. But all the government, all said and done, how much ever they say ease of doing business in India, but still, I don't know whether it is the government per se or whether it is the people who are serving. They make a lot of, in fact, they create a lot of problems, right? As rightly said by you, yeah, it's not that easy to get into that cusp of 2 crores or 20 crores of revenue, right? At the beginning. So definitely, yeah, I understand. I totally agree with you that at the end of the day, startup will feel dejected because of the so many, what we can say, the compliances that he has to really get into. and then probably he will feel that, okay, fine, it's better to go for a job wherein you can get monthly salary without putting a lot of, I should say, I mean, as a businessman, we'll have a lot of sleepless nights, right? Until we start really picking up that momentum. So yeah, you are right. And see, sir, what I feel is nowadays, of course, entering into or maybe having a plan B, plan A, plan B, plan C is definitely feasible. And what we have to do is in entrepreneurship, we teach something as customer value proposition. Most of the business enterprises, what they do is they look from the product per se or the service per se, and they look from the profit per se or making surplus, but they don't look at the customer value. That's what we teach in entrepreneurship. We say whatever idea you have, you try to understand whether that particular idea is really required by the customer. I'm so sorry, whether that particular idea is really required by the customer. That's what is CVP, right? So how far he's going to receive, understand what are all the competitors already existing in the market, and why the customer is looking for a change in that particular product. So what kind of change you can bring in? Yeah, on paper saying all these things is very easy, I agree with you. But if seriously, if an entrepreneur does this, because this is what is the question which I have asked all my students, because business plan preparation was not only preparation, but it was a presentation in a phased manner. So I asked all my students to do this CVP analysis. I asked all my students to find out who is going to be their first customer and who is going to be their 100th customer. And what is the time gap between first customer and 100th customer? If they are able to realize this, right, in relation to the CVP, I think somewhere, yeah, they can establish their business and they can take forward their business. Though there will be initial hiccups, but taking forward the business would not be a difficulty. I hope I answered your question, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. But if you sometime I feel that like in our commerce background, people say that CA require a lot of patience.
Yeah.
So for the startup also, ma'am, because you have to really back yourself a lot. I mean, you require the people to motivate because you sometimes feel depressed. Like you say that you feel degraded.
Yes.
You have good idea, you have everything on board. It's just that you don't have good investor, you don't have support from the various things.
Yes, yes.
I met many various startups because I have written many research paper on this. Even my background is not that, but I like the way funding happens in that particular startup.
Yes, yes.
But they believe that until unless you have your own pocket sufficient,
yes,
don't go with the startup, because initially no one going to entertain you until unless you presented this idea in various seminars of entrepreneurship. Maybe they like it, maybe they come across to meet you. And that meeting required a lot of efforts of yours. You have to find a lot of connects.
Right.
Connects is more important, right now in this scenario. Even your parents will support up to a particular point of time. Your friends will support, but of course, until you have your own funds to invest, no one bothers.
Exactly.
That's the reality ground which I feel, ma'am. Thank you for addressing my question here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. See, in fact, when we were discussing, I remembered Mr. Phanindra Sama, a Red Bus. Right? If you look at the biography of Mr. Phanindra Sama, we'll be able to understand how much of a struggle he had, and then how these venture capitalists started pouring in. When he required, they rejected. But when he was fine, this Red Bus was perfectly into the market, then there were a lot of people who wanted to invest upon it. But initially, when he approached, they said, this is not going to be a good idea. This is not going to be a feasible idea. Probably we don't want to really invest into it. So I was just going through that biography long back. I keep on discussing all these things with my students as well. What kind of struggle an entrepreneur will have.
Entrepreneurs do have the struggle. That is totally true. And it is about the persistence. Whereas, Amit sir, I'm sorry, I have a different thought process. Why I'm sharing it? Because yes, you must have a plan B, but it should be the contingency plan. It should not be the plan B, it should be the contingency plan. I'm repeating again this statement.
No, what sir is saying is...
When we are saying that we should start entrepreneurship, I think we all need to understand and clear our doubts about the finance. And first thing, to go ahead with before entrepreneurship, I must say that one must learn to listen no. This is a very important and critical factor which is required to, because we all people are groomed in such a cocoon, I would say, in a family or a background, that we are not able to resist the no. And I would rather advise each of my student as well as entrepreneurs to go ahead with the network marketing. Why I
Yes.
say them? Because it will you will be able to come to know whether you would be able to start a startup or not. Because if you are able to hear so many of no's, then you will be are good to go. You are
but
good
they-
to
but
go.
but there are people, even though people said no, don't do it, they have done it and they have proved
Yes,
themselves.
yes, they have done it and they have proved themselves.
Yeah, that confidence,
And
commitment we talk about, right?
commitment has to be come from you. If you
Yes, yes,
think that is the accountability and the responsibility. One is
exactly,
responsibility and second is accountability.
exactly.
Whatever decisions you have taken, I really appreciate this one quote of this Ratan Tata: I take decisions and make them right.
Exactly. I
So
don't take right decision, but I take decision, make them
yeah,
right.
yeah, thank you, ma'am, for correcting me.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is the my thought process, because once you have planned it, you have to learn lot of things. You have to wear many hats. With you have to an entrepreneur have to understand not only about the finance. It has to one has to understand about the stakeholders, about the HR part, about so many hats.
Everything, everything. That's what.
That is what the hardship is, and people see it often as a very fantastic and a successful person. But the struggles that are definitely there, you can ask each and every entrepreneur.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Right.
Sorry
Yes.
to interrupt, Anju ma'am, for a while. My plan A, plan B idea was about that plan. Even one plan say succeeded. Your next investor would like to what next? They want something add-on because whenever you ask for the fund, suppose you reach a particular milestone and now you require something add-on. So I'm not saying that plan B, plan C is a different plan. It's actually, somewhere auxiliary to your main plan A. So when you succeeded the plan A, then of course add-on is required because people in the market start observing you. Yes, this is the new guy who has come up with the idea. Now people start adapting because if you ask me, this word which you call intellectual property rights,
Yes.
people are not aware about it. If people are not aware about it, people are not very much fond of. They make a kind of clone things, and they start delivering the same process which you actually doing it. Now you have to do something add-on. For that add-on, you require plan B, plan C, which actually somewhere help your plan A to succeed more better, to get more fun, to be more popular.
See,
And of course, yes, you mentioned that the struggle talks. Yes, ma'am, struggle talks, but each, each struggle, if you find out with any startup, he has 100 reasons to believe how he failed,
yes,
and he has
yes.
one reason to believe how he succeeded.
Succeeded
Or
exactly.
when he succeeded, he makes sure that succeeding thing will go for long period of time. But again, he learned from another failure. Then he realized that now he have to drop this idea, and the learning and unlearning part of a startup or entrepreneur never ends.
Exactly.
He learns something, then he realizes he reached at a particular level, then he unlearn and he adapts something new. So he never stopped learning. So
See,
one idea you cannot make you at the top. You have to make sure that make it as a top. Plan B, Plan C, you actually help them to make him in the top is required as well as a parallel thing.
see, we
Sorry,
can.
ma'am, I interrupt in between. Thank you so much.
No,
Thank
no,
you.
no, it's okay. See, we can talk about. We can give the Nokia's example here. Nokia was the leader in the mobile phone market when mobile phone was introduced,
yes,
but Samsung overtook it because Samsung was one step ahead in adapting to the changing technology, changing requirements. But Nokia was not so very adaptive. So Samsung definitely pushed back Nokia. Then Nokia started realizing now, right? If I remember vaguely, 2000, 2001, almost every alternate individual was having a Nokia phone. But over a period of time, now we are using Samsung phones, or maybe we have gone to the Xiaomi phones, right? They are making themselves more advanced.
true.
So that's what Amit Kumar sir says. You have to learn and unlearn if you want to really in the fray in the market, or probably you plan for something else. So plan A, plan B is basically if you want, if already you have experienced the success, then if you want to expand in that, you expand, or probably you plan for diversification.
Yes.
So that's what all these big groups, in fact, Reliance, Tata, and all those groups have done. So they have diversified into various areas.
Yes.
Is it not? If we look at, Reliance started with textile, but now textile is not talked about majorly. Right? So even Wipro we know more, maybe TCS, Tata also. Tata, of course, Tata Motors is there. Tata Group, we know. But again, certain companies are there where basically we don't even understand with what they have started.
Right.
Is it not? So that's how they have diversified. So sometimes they have closed the earlier ventures and then they have made success in the diversified ventures only.
Right.
Is it not? Yeah, I just picked up few cases here. Of course, all these are available, but I thought we will also just have a look at why there were failures, in fact. So this amidst all these are in Indian. I have taken only Indian examples only. I always believe in taking Indian examples. So serving home cooked food is becoming a trend. In fact, this was the one among today's startups. Yumist was one such venture, and it was launched in the year 2014 to cover the daily meal segment in India, a largely untapped market. The founders were Alok Jain and Abhimanyu Maheshwari, who managed to raise nearly $3 million in funding. But the reason for failure is a business model with a high burn rate that required extensive capital beyond Yumist reach for achieving growth. So that's what capital estimation. Enough funding was also not available to run the startup, so the startup had to shut down. The Yumist case study is often mentioned when one talks about the famous failed startups in India. So this is basically why it failed, because we discussed in the financial management right in the beginning slide. We said we should be able to estimate the required amount of capital. $3 billion, if suppose it is not enough, funding is not enough to run a business, then probably somewhere the understanding of the business model itself was a failure. Is it not? So much of amount is required because it is basically serving. Now Swiggy, right? Later on, Swiggy and all these have come up, Zomato and all. Now, same thing was amidst. They wanted to do the same kind of a service to the people, but Swiggy has understood the market and Swiggy came out with a very big investment and they are successful now. Is it not? Then we have this DAC, right? Dial a Celeb. Of course, it is only a short-lived, I should say, the startup. All right. Let's be honest, a chance to talk with your favorite celebrities on everyone's bucket list. So banking on this wish, Dial a Celeb was a short-lived yet exciting concept founded in the year 2016 by Gaurav Chopra and Ranjan Agrawal. In addition to video chats with actors and celebs, the platform also allowed the customers to get autographed items such as toys and diaries. However, the startup closed its doors within a year. What is the reason? The reason for failure, the major reason for Dial a Celeb's failure was that celebrities were coming up with their own apps to interact with the fans. So this trend basically resulted in immense competition for Dial a Celeb and a direct impact on the profitability. So hence, Dial a Celeb was shut in the year 2017. So this is basically to understand, know your rivals well and also brace yourself for the competition that may arise in the future. That's what we were talking about again in terms of Nokia also. Very good examples, in fact, I have taken here. The StayZilla.com, once on the path of becoming the largest homestay network in India. It made a very good beginning, but suddenly it has collapsed. StayZilla is reminiscent of riches to rags story, with around $33.5 million in funding and having established itself in the hotel rental segment. This brainchild of Yogendra Vasupal and Rupal Yogendra and Sanchit Singhi started crumbling after it failed to repay the vendors. The troubles were then aggregated, and in February 2017, Yogendra Vasupal officially announced the closure of StayZilla's operations. Reason for failure? StayZilla was way ahead of its time when launched. People were not ready for such hi-fi technology. Again, as I said, customer value proposition is very, very important. Here, StayZilla has failed in understanding what is required for customer. So people were not ready for such hi-fi technology. However, the company somehow managed for some time on the funding it received. But when people started becoming familiar with online booking, new competitors emerged with better discounts and deals. And hence, StayZilla was unable to provide the same due to the unavailability of funds. So additionally, legal disputes and lack of focus on the growing the business destroyed the entire Stazilla. So again, the discussion what we had, know the customer. Without knowing the customer, if you start, I think you're going to be a failure. Intercity travels have become a mainstream requirement. Traveling 100 kilometers or more every day is deemed as just another day to some. So the reason may be anything, I'm so sorry. Office location, excursion, meeting a friend, etc. These journeys can burn a hole in the pocket. So Roder, earlier known as InstaCabs, was founded by Abhishek Negi, Ashish Rajput, and Siddhant Matre in 2014 to ease intercity rides. One of the Roder's highlights was offering one-way rides at nearly half the market price. So the reason for failure is the inability to cope up with the customer acquisition cost and not keeping up with the user retention rates. So moreover, increased competition from the experienced ventures like Ola and Uber added to Roder's woes. Having a bigger competitor that is more aggressively funded makes the entrepreneur lose their zeal. And this is one of the major causes for entrepreneur failure. Right? And this is what is the stress on the MSME sector, of course, when we talk about all these things. All said and done, we said entrepreneurship is flourishing in India, of course, no doubt, but still there are a lot of problems that every entrepreneur faces, and it is the survival of the fittest. The more you face the problems, the more you come out of the problems at a faster pace, you are going to be successful. Okay, so I'll not read this one. So these are all the SME exit strategies. I have already taken 1 minute extra time. So I'll not really talk about all this, but yes, if at all the SME is not able to really perform, probably it can go for liquidation at once, or it can go for liquidation over time, or it can keep the business in their own family, or sell the business to the managers or employees, sell the business in the open market, sell to another business, or go for public offering. The essence of success of MSMEs lies in its pattern of financing and perfect management. This is what is my conclusion. Thank you, one and all, for your patient listening. Now the floor is open for questions or any suggestions, anything that you want to. Sir, I'm sorry I've taken extra time.
No, you are welcome, madam. Really, session is going very interesting, so that you can also take more time, no problem, 5 to 10 minutes.
Thank
no
you.
issues.
Thank you.
So yes, we have to give the complete information to the participants, madam. No problem. Yeah.
So was it as per the expectations of the organizers, sir?
yes, madam. That is what we are seeing, madam.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you all participants.
Please raise your questions if you have any doubts regarding to that financial management in MSME. Hope speaker will give the full of information to you.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Right, and you can also raise the questions if you have any doubts.
I think there are no questions in the chat box.
Yeah, we will see that, madam. So it means that
yeah. So sorry again. I come in the picture twice in this whole scenario. You have, ma'am, a lot of failure story with you, ma'am. When I go through various failure success story of various startups,
yeah,
every story has something unique and something differ.
Exactly.
Because of the product and variation. I mean, I don't think there's a single set of formula for anything like except that value proposition about customer, which you start always explaining in between whenever you require to sell. I mean, I mean, what message basically we take it as a failure, because failure story are huge. Yes. You find very few successful story in the world, but failures are huge.
Yes.
And each failure has its plus and minus. Someone ignore technical ground, someone ignore financial ground, someone ignore the customer ground. Customer ground is the basic one, which is basically required from the very first. But the prioritization of one aspect over the other, from one startup to other, it's varying.
Yes.
And and being a single, suppose it's just a single startup, if the guy is alone, he has to take all the calls. He cannot be good in every aspect. So for the startup, you require the expert from various fields, then the cost become the headache for him. So a lot of things plus and minus, but still we find out various good startup on board and various failures on board as well.
Usually everyone will speak about the success stories. Right. But if we are able to really
True,
learn from the
true.
failures.
Never talk about failure story.
Exactly. And see,
everyone want a topper in each one house. My son, my
no
daughter,
one
blah
looks
blah
at the
blah.
backbencher.
But actually, ma'am, that these backbenchers create history. Sometimes you find out that various startups,
Yes.
you have a lot of backbenchers who actually coming. They have 100 various idea how to how to get rid of this or that. They have some in our Punjabi called jugaad.
Yeah.
There are various jugaad. They have it, and these jugadi people have find out the way to have a good startup because sometimes your bookish thing remain bookish. Sometimes when you go to the ground in the field, you have to think beyond that bookish.
Exactly. Sir, see, while selecting this failures example also, what it is, I have taken 4 different failure examples. One was because of funding, one was because of not knowing the competitor, one was because of not knowing the what we can say the customer, one was because of again not knowing who is entering into the market. Right. So I have picked up different examples. That's why. So that we will be able to understand in an all-round manner as to what exactly an entrepreneur should look when he is starting a business precisely. And as rightly said by you, my next door entrepreneur, probably if he is a failure, not necessary that I should be a failure. Is it not? So because that differs from one to one. So that is what we have to understand. I think this discussion will help all of us, those who are handling with the entrepreneurship paper and also those who are handling with financial management paper also. I think this discussion of ours today will pave a lot of, even I have learned a lot from all of you people. I am going to carry forward these examples to my class. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the lovely live session. Really applaud, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions?
Kindly share your contact number.
Yeah. My contact number. Yeah. I'll write it here in the chat box. 939 333 2652. Sir, entrepreneurship subject is my passion, in fact.
Ma'am, I think if I remember correctly, there was at your college also there was an entrepreneurship by the CWEI.
I didn't get you, madam. Can you be a little louder?
I said, ma'am, if I remember correctly, there was a session of entrepreneurship at your college with the help of CWEI.
In our college?
Yeah, in collaboration with CWEI.
2 years before, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I remember it correctly then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, sir. I thank all the coordinators for accepting, in fact, selecting me and giving this platform to discuss. See, always intellectual discussions will definitely help every one of us. So all of us are on the same platform. So really the interaction was very nice. I enjoyed the session. I never felt that it is 2 hours, and in fact beyond 2 hours also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. It is our fortunate to have you, madam. So really, what we say, God destiny, then it is makes turning where it is goes as like. So, however, then we got you, madam, for our session. It is heartfully we feel very happy, and at the same time, participants also got knowledge about that from your presentation. So hopefully, then we make a satisfaction the participants.
It was indeed a grateful experience.
What we promised to you, our participants, we are trying to reach our promise. Right. Every session, then we will make a very wonderful, very knowledgeable information to all our participants. So we'll try to make come to that situations, that position. Like really very thankful to you, madam, for accepting our invitation within a short time. Then you are accepting and you are also ready to for the session. Really, it is amazing thing. So it is keeps me very happy, very happy. And I'm also very thankful to the Pawan sir giving to me a wonderful resource person to me. And at the same time, we can also expect more sessions from you, madam.
Sure, sir.
So in further also.
Sure, sir.
Right. Really, your presentation is very nice, madam. Very valuable information that you have shared.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, on behalf of DST, on behalf of participants, on behalf of college, we are very thankful to you, madam. We are very, very thankful to you
Thank you.
for giving a wonderful session. Thank you. Thanks a lot, madam. So we will be in touch in future, madam.
Sure, sure. Always, sir, always.
Sure, madam. Sure. Thank you. Thanks a
Thank you,
lot.
sir. Can I leave, sir?
Sure, madam. Sure.
Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
It was wonderful.
One more request, madam.
Sir.
Hello.
Sir, tell me.
One more request, madam. There is a valedictory program today. We have successfully completed 12 days program.
Okay.
So we'll end up with your presentation. Sessions are over.
Okay.
Now we have a valedictory program at 2 p.m. madam, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. So
Okay.
I request you kindly join the program, madam.
Sure, definitely, sir.
If possible, your time is okay, comfort to you, then you please
No
join the
problem.
session.
I think I have my class at 2:45.
Yeah. I will share
No
share
problem.
the
I'll
schedule.
join, and probably at the time of my class, I'll leave the session.
Yes, I will share the schedule to you.
Please,
So to all the resource persons, them I'm inviting all the resource persons. So I
Sure,
hope we have this FDP. We have 30 resource persons, madam.
Okay.
So we are requesting to them to join the program. So
Okay.
the same I'm requesting you.
Okay.
So
I'm the
please
last
join.
batsman. Batswoman.
Yeah. That's right.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. You are most welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, dear participants, very good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah,
Sir.
dear participants, please talk with me.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. It is very good information to us. As like then we have successfully completed 12 days FDP program.
All credit goes to you.
It happens. It is possible only with your support. Really, I'm very happy to have you as such a good participants to this FDP program. I never expect as like support is coming from you like this. Really amazing. The same, I am requesting you all, please join the valedictory program at 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. So I will post the schedule in WhatsApp group. The same. So join everyone without fail. So we need all your support, all your blessings. Right? So we see again at valedictory program at 1:30.
Thank you, sir, Ramesh. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
So thank you, sir. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Naik sir, really applaud your hard work, and you find out a lot of good speakers around you. Really applaud, sir. Thank you.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you for kind support. So to throughout the program, really you are attending and you are active participation in the program. Really is a very nice and very good, sir. Okay, then we will meet by 1:30, right? Then we'll start valedictory program by 2. So then we'll wind up it by 3. So thank you everyone. So please attend, everyone, don't miss it. So your attendance also considered for the program, right? Thank you.